Namaste, beautiful beings. This is Belinda Pearl, and welcome to this Oracular Divination session. Just after or just on this new moon in Capricorn. So, did you have a good new moon? What did you experience? What structures have you put into place? So, what's your foundation that you want to spring forward from? That's really what the energy is. What foundation do you want to spring forward from? What bricks are you willing to pave your path with? What are you willing to bring from the past into your future? Hopefully you'll be deciding to simplify life. I've been looking at, I did a couple of readings today. The very beginning of the day, the first card that came up was New Beginnings, which synchronistically enough goes with the new moon, right? As well as that particular deck, when the first time I ever used it, I split the deck and that same card came out, which was New Beginnings. I thought that was quite synchronistic on this new moon, that this deck, when I used it again to read, that it was the same card. And then I did a reading just before this, and I thought the same card's going to come out. It has to. It's kind of like synchronistic today, but it didn't actually. It was the polar opposite of that card. It was completion. So then it had me thinking about these cycles that we move into, or we move through. We begin each day a fresh day, and then we go through all these experiences in our day. And at the end of the day, either we think about all the worries and woes or whatever it is that we've gone through, or we have the opportunity to think about all the great things that we learned, even if it's the smallest thing, like maybe somebody smiled at us or we smiled back at them. But instead, I was talking about these cycles, like where are we in our cycles and how do we fit, like how do we allow ourselves to fit into the cycle? The reading before this too was also talking about our mindset. How can we upgrade our mindset? We're going into this, I shouldn't say going into, we are in this upgrading spaciousness. They want to take us on a journey. They want to take us into, I would say, like outer space. Like if you can imagine the space just around you, you can just look around your space and you see where you are, where you're seated. Now imagine the room next door to you. You can take your mind into that space, right? You've been there before. It's easy to see. Maybe outside of your house or wherever you're sitting. You've been outside in your garden or the garden that's outside. So you can easily transport yourself there. Now imagine your favorite spot that you've traveled to. Maybe it's an island somewhere, maybe it's a mountaintop, maybe it's a beautiful building somewhere, and you can just think about it and you transport yourself there. How easy is that? Now let's take ourselves outside. And if you look up outside, it's maybe nighttime. This is the picture that they're forming as nighttime, and you see the moon. It's a new moon today, so you may not see the moon, but you've been there before where you've seen the moon, whether she is like a crescent moon or she's a full moon. You've seen that. And while you're watching the moon, you're going to notice that there's stars sparkling in the sky behind her. And so you can imagine all these stars. Maybe you recognize some of the stars, you know them by name. Maybe some of the constellations you know by name, or you can recognize how they're kind of like dot to dot. They make funny pictures in the sky. And then maybe you've seen pictures. You've seen actually pictures from NASA or somewhere of, a photograph from outer space somewhere, or a nebula, or a spiral galaxy. You've seen those, maybe pictures. I always look at a nebula and I always think of myself, I'd like to see myself floating. I don't know how it is up there, but I always imagine myself floating through that sort of pink gas, right? That would be me. Like, I want to go out there floating in that pink gas. And I just imagine what it is to be there. And now I imagine now where's the corners of the universe? Where is the universe? And I try to think about that, and I can't seem to find any edges. But if you focus on that, at some point, if you're looking, your mind may fall into like a gentle stillness, just pondering where's the edges of the universe. And in that pondering space where the mind seems to fall into stillness, there's an opportunity there for, a new message, a new possibility. And so this was this guidance that came through before this particular video that I'm doing, where it was like opening your mind to new possibilities. Like, we've been in these same old cycles, and how can we change the way that we're thinking so we can literally leapfrog into a new dimension, which is literally, I feel like, is changing the way that we're thinking. So how can we move through these cycles? At the end of each day, you can go through your day and go through all the feels and the feelings that you've had. But look at your day as an opportunity that it's taught you something, that there was great wisdom that was shared with you. And this is a time for great wisdom as well. It's also a good time for great truth. We also make things way too complex and way too complicated. When we're in this place of complexity and complicated, there's no space, there's no spaciousness for thinking and creativity or thoughts to just find their way inside, like to inspire us. So let us find a way to like distract ourselves from thinking, because the puzzle pieces that need to kind of fall into place. You know, if we all tight and tense, we create no space. I like all that. So it's kind of like this. Same early on, I was sharing Reiki with somebody, and all the prayers were coming out in rhymes and poetry. And so it's the same thing. It's like, where can we create new inspiration to flow in by opening ourselves up and emptying ourselves completely? Maybe this is a good time to start to empty ourselves as well. We can look into our closets and see what we can donate. It'll be a good time to donate a lot of things that we don't need. Emptying out what the shoe boxes that we haven't worn those shoes for 10 or 2 years, whatever that may be. Maybe it's time. We don't need every pair of shoes that we have in our closets. We don't definitely need new pairs of shoes, unless somebody's hand making them on the side of the road and you are there barefoot, and then you can support them in some way or fashion, right? So there's this idea of like emptying ourselves out and only needing what's important to us. This is what Aries is bringing to us. And I say Aries, I mean Mars is bringing to us as Mars moves into Taurus. What are you truly valuing? What is our value to you? Last year was teaching us about valuing ourselves and our heart and being in love with ourselves and being in love with the universe. Far too often we fall out of love, especially with ourselves and with the universe too, because we have these expectations, and those expectations becomes that stuff that stuffs us in the closet, in the back of the closet, and you haven't worn yourself, you haven't seen yourself for probably a decade or two, because you've been stuffed in the back of the closet and wearing everything else that's not even yours, or not even that you want to wear anymore. I think that we're going through these mega transformations. You know, people are realizing, what is it? I don't want to use the word career, but some people are going through career changes or career choices, right? New career opportunities, like you're finding things that have been speaking to you for the longest time, and it's time for you to really embrace that part. You know, let us steer clear away from the things that make us feel stuck and like imprisoned. It's time for us to unimprison ourselves, to set ourselves free, to liberate ourselves. So let us do a reading, because I know they want to turn things around, and I know Eris has she's like the big steamship in the galaxy right now, in our solar system, turning around. She's coming out of retrograde and going back direct. So that energy is going to help, I don't want to say fast forward, but allow the energy of 2021 to be a little bit faster than 2020. We feel a little less stuck. So let's see where a little less stuckness can take us into, and where we shall be going. So close your eyes and take a deep breath. Breathe all the breath out. Let's see what guidance has for us. Oh, this is like very synchronistic. I think that's all my readings typically are very synchronistic. It says moon on here, it says darkness. So very much like we're in new moon. It's also like this yin yang symbology-ish here. Her hair one, so I'm going to speak a little bit about what I'm seeing in the card. Her hair is covering her eyes, so things aren't quite being seen. We've seen this actually before, and in fact, where some of the planets are, I'm trying to remember, there's like a similar energy that we were met with last year around the same time, but the energy is going to be different, because we have all those not Pluto, we have Saturn and Jupiter and Mercury all now in Aquarius, and we're having that like super conjunction energy as well. There's a new way of communicating, but there's these things that we haven't seen. So what are we not seeing? Or there's something new that wants to come through. That's what I'm going to say too. There's something new that wants to come through, that wants to be birthed. We keep seeing this birthing cycle. The number on the card is 7, so I feel like there's this chariot awaiting to bring us through to a new dimension, a dimension that we haven't even thought of, something happening behind her. It reminds me of the Starry Night when you travel into the nebula. It kind of has that starry-esque feeling to be there, where we can allow ourselves to kind of almost like sink back, and we don't have to be so active, but a little bit more passive. There's a little bit of internalizing, like she's holding herself, self-caring, self-loving. It's a good time for us to do that as well. Is self-nurturing practices. How can we nurture ourselves? And there's this idea about listening, like listening to guidance from this intuitive self within inside of you. But not big ideas, ideas that really pertain to you. This is, again, Mars coming into Taurus energy. This is, what are you valuing? Have you been valuing too many other material things that are outside of your space? Or do you really need to look in your closet and throw things out and choose what it is that you want for you? What do you value? What can hold you? And you can actually be naked in this. You don't even have to hold on to anything. You can strip yourself completely naked, if you will, and let go of things. And I mean it in a symbolic form, right? The things that are holding you back into your old ways of being, the things that cloud your mind, because there's a little bit of cloudiness through her mind here. What is it we don't want to see? But it's no matter what, it's going to pop up and make you see it no matter what you do. So there's a lot of like this internal listening to what your inner guiding team wants to share with you. And it'll be, and I'm saying it's from a symbolic point of view too, but it'll be very intuitive led. Like you will know this from you. It's not going to be from a guide. It's going to be from your internal guidance system. If there's something that we could do or wish to do to help us, is to really find time for self-nurturing practice. Just maybe sitting and holding and hugging yourself. I learned this great like self-care practice from Wa. Wa is an amazing musician. Maybe you know, should know of her, especially in the yoga community. She sings beautiful mantra, and so she taught me this self-care practice, and I share it every Wednesday morning at the Soul of Yoga. And it's all about this, like coming back to yourself. And this is what we did today. We like placed our hands on our hearts and we just hummed away. And that's something that you can do for yourself too, is just maybe place your hands on your heart and hum. Like humming is a very soothing practice. So maybe this is something that we can do as well. We can do it together. Maybe you can join me next week, Wednesday, or whenever. But it's a time for a great truth that wants to come through. And there's no amount of going outside of ourselves for us to find the great truth. The truth will come from within us. And it sounds very like, you know, you hear this 100 times, but it is true actually. That's why it's like, if we allow our mind to be quiet, that the new messages, the creativity, the inspiration that we want, that we desperately seeking, can easily find its way into us. The more we come internal versus going outside of ourselves, that inspiration can be expressed in a creative way once we start to allow ourselves to really move into that new realm or that new way of thinking. So my dears, from my heart to yours, may you always be blessed. Namaste. Again, this is Glenda Pearl, and you can find me at glendapearl.com. Namaste.